Hey everybody, good morning. We are live and alive right here at CSLDallas. Oh my goodness, my voice sounds horrible.
Sounds good.
Sounds good?
Sounds good.
Oh, keep affirming that.
I'm giving you the news, not a compliment.
My name is Tracy Brown and I am here with Faye Abdusalam, one of our ministerial students, and together today we are going to lead the Science of Mind class. Please join me in a breath of centering, taking in this very moment, knowing it is perfect and perfectly unfolding. And so it is. So every Sunday we go through the Science of Mind textbook, a little bit of it, and talk about it. So as we begin, I invite you and you and you and you to be hearing it and thinking about what it means to you or what questions you have so that we can dive a little bit deeper. So we are in chapter 2, and we are starting with the second subchapter, and let's go. Let's dive in.
The first great discovery. The first great discovery man made was that he could think. This was the day when he first said, "I am." This marked his first day of personal attainment. From that day, man became an individual and had to make all further progress himself. From that day, there was no compulsory evolution. He had to work in conscious union with life. The basis from which man is evolving is infinite. Behind him is the great unknown, but not the great unknowable. As a result of the discovery that he could think, plan, and execute, man has built up a great civilization. He has perceived that nature works through him in order to work for him. He has harnessed electricity, compelled steam to do his bidding, conquered the air, built cities, made the desert to bloom, and has thrown the lines of his commerce around the globe. Indeed, he has seemed to possess the earth during this process, even though little attention has been given to that still small voice which said, "Man, know thyself."
Take it in and read it again.
We can't hear you, Tracy.
I know, I'm talking there.
That one line?
The whole thing.
The whole thing. Okay. The first.
Don't tell me you're repeating though.
Oh, I'm going to repeat. I'm going to repeat what I just read. The first great discovery man made was that he could think. This was the day when he first said, "I am." This marked his first day of personal attainment. From that day, man became an individual and had to make all further progress himself. From that day, there was no compulsory evolution. He had to work in conscious union with life. The basis from which man is evolving is infinite. Behind him is the great unknown, but not the great unknowable. As the result of the discovery that he could think, plan, and execute, man has built up a great civilization. He has perceived that nature works through him in order to work for him. He has harnessed electricity, compelled steam to do his bidding, conquered the air, built cities, made the desert to bloom, and has thrown the lines of his commerce around the globe. Indeed, he has seemed to possess the earth during this process. even though little attention has been given to that still small voice which said, "Man, know thyself."
Wow. So the title of this subchapter is The First Great Discovery. And as I'm listening to it, it's like, oh yeah, the first great discovery is that discovery of I can think, I can process, I can have an opinion, I can make a choice, that I get to think. I am the thinker. I am spirit expressing in a specific way. And when Ernest Holmes says this marked the first day of personal attainment, what do you think was being attained? A lot of times when we say attainment, we think of material things. Acquiring and attainment to a lot of people are the same. But from a spiritual perspective, when we use attainment, it's more than, it's kind of the alignment of the internal and the external. We use attainment to describe we attain knowledge or wisdom or understanding. So these two paragraphs are a really good reminder that the basis from which we have been created is infinite. And that nature is what is working through us in order to give us the human experience we want to have. Does that make any sense at all? Are you tracking? Are you all online tracking? If not, remember, put your question or your comment in the chat, and in a few minutes, we'll also ask for examples that you may have that make it make sense to you. This line that humanity has built up a great civilization. We have perceived that nature works through us in order to work for us. And because of that, we have harnessed electricity. We've done all these things, created civilization. But it starts with the first great discovery, know thyself. So we're going to keep going into the next part, the greatest discovery of all time, mind. And it's at the top of page 73 if you are following along with your textbook.
Would you read a little louder, please?
Sure. The greatest discovery of all time, mind. Man's first discovery of his ability to think was taken as a matter of fact. He had always been able to think. It was proof that he existed. It gave him the ability to know his needs and supply them. It appeared to be an automatic thing. It came with him and would doubtless die when he died. The brain seemed to be the organ of thought, and, of course, when death stilled the brain, it would no longer operate. However, a day came when some wise man claimed that it is not the brain that does the thinking, for if the brain could think, it would keep on thinking when removed from the body. Yet without a brain, a man could not think, which proved that something behind the brain used it as an instrument. Man does think, so behind the brain there must be a thinker. But where is the thinker? We do not see him. Have we a right to say there is a thinker when we have not seen him? Yes, for the proof of this reality is the evidence of his thought. Back of the organism is the thinker and the doer, the mind. This was the greatest discovery of all time, for it meant that the body without the thinker could not function. At first, man did not perceive this and thought only of his body as self-operating. But when he discovered this was not the case, he found that he could consciously think and decide, and that something happened to his thoughts after he thought them. They went somewhere and returned to him as memory.
I'm smiling because this is like juicy stuff, right? The mind works, and who is the thinker? And is your brain thinking, or is your brain just an instrument or a tool through which the universal mind and your mind connect and interact? A lot of times in science of mind, we like to go to the science, like physical science, and mirror it to the spiritual science. And this is one of those places where it's like, oh, I never really thought about it before. When we declare someone has died, the brain doesn't keep thinking. In fact, many of us have heard people, or even if it's only on TV and not in real life, well, the patient is brain dead, and so now we need to stop all measures. So in the way we talk about it, it's like the brain is dead, so the person is dead. The soul is not dead, but the physical body ends, and the brain does not continue to process information on its own. So mind, capital M mind, becomes the greatest discovery because we realize it is more than just the physical brain that is doing this. You are the thinker, and you are thinking by tapping into a universal mind. I'm guessing that there are one or two people who are like, Tracy, what the heck are you saying? That makes no sense to me. So we're going to go to questions and comments. And I'm going to ask Ryan if he would give some instructions, just in case we have a few people who are with us for the first time.
Well, we always have people who are with us for the first time, Tracy, so it's good to always let folks know how we do things around here, because as you mentioned, this is an engaging conversation, so we always welcome people's thoughts and ideas and questions and comments. And so for those folks who are here in the room, just feel free to raise your hand, and myself or the iconic Richard sitting here to my right will hand you the microphone, and then you can go ahead and say your name and ask your questions. For the folks who are joining us via Zoom, welcome. And it's going to be easy for you to engage with us in the conversation. All you need to do is hit the raise your hand icon located down below, or feel free to put your question or comment inside of the chat, and I can bring that into the room. And a special welcome to all those who are watching us over the globe. Good evening to you all. Thank you for joining us. And it's just as easy as putting your question and comment inside of the chat, and I can bring that into the room as well. So I just wanted to pull the folks here in the room. Anybody with a thought, question about what's coming up for you? I think they're still waking up, because the folks here online are hanging out as well too.
Right. Okay.
Let me have the microphone. I have a very brief story to tell.
Be sure to say your
My
name.
name is Ross. I had the experience of being invited into the penguin cage at SeaWorld. This is where they actually live, the cold environment. And there were 20 or 30 types of penguins in there. I didn't know there were so many. And the person guiding me, it was my whole family, said, now this one will be jealous if you pay attention to this one. And just on cue, that individual penguin squawked like crazy when it wasn't receiving the attention of the people. And it went around to all these penguins, different varieties, and they all had personalities. They all had self-awareness. And going, this was shocking. I thought they were just a bunch of dumb birds. And then I started looking, because this was a long time ago, I started looking at any creature that's mobile seems to have some sort of mind. Still a mystery to me, but it seems necessary for survival.
Great, thanks, Russ. So everything that is alive has a vibration and a way of expressing life. And that is the way that universal mind is operating in, as, and through them. However, when we are talking about mind here in the context of how it operates in humanity, there is another element. So it's a yes and, not an either or. So yes, the penguins have a way of operating, communicating, have personality, ways of interacting with each other. Any group of animals that lives together, and right, they have their systems, and what looks to us, and for the trainer or professional to say, that one is going to get jealous of that one, right? We're overlaying some human emotion and feeling, but that does show in different species as well. The focus here on mind as the great discovery is, there's a line that was in the first section that basically says the discovery of I am that I am. I am this mind, or not here, but in many other places. The famous Ernest Holmes quote, there is a power for good in the universe that is greater than we are. It is available to all, and we can use it. Okay, I know I paraphrased it, but I put some we's in there instead of I. And this is really getting us, this chapter is really getting us into the understanding that we have access to, and we are the expression of this universal mind. So, great, that gets us started.
May I add a comment to that?
Absolutely.
So for me, reading this, it's like that the first personal attainment was like the awareness. I'm not my body. I'm not my brain. And then it's been like an ongoing awakening, because it's like, oh, I'm not my body. I'm not my brain. Oh, I am. Oh, I can also use a law and manifest, like it talks about our thoughts. They go somewhere and then they return to us as memory. For me, it's like, oh, I have the experience of whatever, like I create, I manifest, and then I have the experience, and then that's a memory. I guess, does that make sense? So yeah, it just feels like it's an ongoing process of awakening, because I'm awakening to each new level of consciousness as I continue to expand my consciousness and awareness as a human.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yes, looks like we have Anita here. Anita, would you like to unmute yourself and join us?
Hey, good morning, everybody.
Good morning,
Hi, Anita.
Good morning, Anita.
Good to see you both. Talking about the awakening, right? I was probably about 10 years old, maybe, right? So you go back into your childhood and think back about when did you first awaken to the fact that there even was a power greater than you are that expresses as who you are. And for me, it's, I don't know, that old time hymn, In the Garden, right? It was a Sunday evening and I was at church and I was standing next to, I don't remember his last name, his first name's Frank. And we were singing that song and it was like the light bulb went off. And there was this overwhelming feeling that came over me that brought tears to my eyes to know that that is who I am. And that, Faye, just as you were just saying, it's a journey, right? The journey of awakening to just exactly what that means. It's an ongoing process to unfold into more and more enlightenment of the I am that I am. So I love this part of the book because it brings back that memory.
Beautiful. Thank you, Anita. Any other comments or questions?
Yeah, it looks like we have one over here.
Be sure to say your name.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Nicole Bett. Hi. I would love to hear your thoughts on adolescent awareness. I've been fascinated by this idea that somehow this concept was introduced to me so young. I remember swinging. I was on my swing in my yard and having this sudden realization brought to me that, oh, I'm inside of here. This body, this consciousness. And without having a word for consciousness, I suddenly somehow realized I am a concept. I am an essence somehow trapped inside this meat suit. And the possibilities just exploded open for me in my little probably 6 or 7 year old head. But so many people go all the way into adulthood before finally discovering these concepts, say through Science of Mind, which is surprising because there's so much content out there in entertainment that kind of alludes to these concepts. But what are your thoughts on waking children up to these ideas, and what are your thoughts on the difference of how we receive these ideas as an adult versus as a child? It seems like a child would be so much more receptive.
So I have a lot of years working with children, and I personally believe it's already there. And so it's a matter of the adults that are working with the children acknowledging it, that it's there, and then, I'm looking for the word, teaching them how to be aware of it themselves. Because I feel like even I've worked with children with different learning abilities, like autism and ADD, ADHD, and again, it's all just a different level of awareness. And it's about the adults being in tune, not only with themselves, but being in tune with the child, observing and paying attention because the awareness is already there. We come in with it. And so it's a matter of taking a moment and spending time with children to breathe. Something as simple as breathing and helping them to understand that just because they have emotions, that it can be stilled and they can communicate their words, or even if they don't have the language, they can communicate what's going on without having to throw a tantrum or, a meltdown. I'm not sure if I answered the question.
Well, there were a couple of questions at the end, but that observation and that memory of how you became aware that, wow, I am not just this that I can touch. That is so powerful. I agree with Faye. I believe that every child is born knowing that innately without any language to describe it. And the way that we are socialized, it just doesn't become something that we expose children to or reward them for. And so they get more rewarded for a mindset and a belief system that's polarizing and separating from each other, let alone from that which created the child. So there are very few systems, belief systems, that our children get exposed to that would affirm that or open it up for them to say, well, that's what I thought all along. So by the time people are adults, if they come into new thought, then they're like, oh, I always kind of knew this, but I didn't know what it was, or I didn't have the language for it, or I thought I was weird because nobody else around me ever talked about it that way. And so, good for you that you actually have the memory and the grounding. And yes, I'm just going to affirm what Faith said, that at different stages of our lives, we can become more aware of it, more conscious of it, more intentional about living from that place where I am using universal mind. And so add, and then we're going to go to Ryan, and then we're going to come over here, and then we'll see if we have any time.
I was just going to add, because you gave me the answer, because you said you knew at that whatever age, and so it's talk to kids. Just ask them questions. What are you experiencing? And then let them tell you, ultimately, and then nurture that.
Great. Ryan.
Yeah, it looks like I have Connie here with us. Connie, you want to go ahead and unmute yourself and say hello?
Good morning, everybody. Hi, Dr. Tracy.
Hey, Connie. Good morning.
Good to see you all. Well, I'm in the middle of a very interesting, I would just like to put it kindly, gently, challenging journey. And I have let go of my apartment, and I'm in a rehab center. And it's a long story, which I don't need to go into. But I keep on asking myself, what am I learning from this? And that helps me so much, because I am learning immense amounts every day. A lot of it is about not taking things for granted, gratitude, appreciation. Gratitude for my hands, for goodness sake. They're marvelous tools. My eyes, my ears, my nose, my mouth. Oh, I am magnificent, I am truly a miracle. Oh, boy, this is amazing. This may be why I came to the planet, you know, I don't know, but here I am. Thank you.
Well, one thing that is absolutely sure, Connie, is that you've been on this journey that you have shared so often with the class and with our community that definitely you're here on the planet to be in this journey at this time, at this phase, uncovering all of these insights that you are having and sharing with us, which is another part of it, that you're sharing it with us so that we can remember to be grateful and to count our blessings and to have gratitude regardless of the situation. So that's a really valuable sharing. And then, you know, our spiritual practice as a community this past week had two parts to it. If you are participating in or watching the celebration service, there was a little homework assignment, and it was every morning wake up and say, I am a miracle. And so I hope you have been using and applying that practice every day, even in what you are labeling as a challenging situation. We've got, okay. All right. So grab the microphone that Richard's handing to you.
This is Ross again. You hit on a topic that really, you're on the tippy top of a gigantic iceberg, and we've got 5 minutes to discuss it. There's so many implications to this about what does it mean if the great I am, that means I am important also. And we have a whole culture that says, maybe you're not. Maybe other things are. And then we have this massive amount of distraction that takes us away from anything that we could call a meaningful life. Like, if you're not me, if you're not like me, there's something wrong with you. I mean, it's just endless. How many weeks are you going to spend on this? Is this it?
Well, we are constantly reteaching and relearning the same laws and principles over and over and over and over again. And that is, I think, what helps all of us take that deep dive, because we hear things the way we hear them, and then we live more or live longer, and we hear it again, but it's the same, but we're not the same. So I don't know, Ross, when you said, you know, this reminds us that each one of us is really important, and each one of us has access to the unlimited, infinite availability of the best that there is. And then you said, because our society tells us we're not important. So isn't that the challenge? Ernest Holmes tells us, you know, it's one thing to know the principles, but it's much harder to use them, apply them, and embody them. So it doesn't matter what we're socialized to believe when we know the truth. When I know the truth and people interact with me because they see the color of my skin and they have a story about that has them motivated to be unkind, unfair, or just outright physically violent or mean, I don't get my identity from their perception of me. And so that is what we teach and practice, that when we know the principles and we know I am that I am, and we know that there are principles and laws and that mind is the greatest discovery, and that awareness that Faye talked about is what I am constantly expanding, then we can navigate in an unfriendly or judgmental or unfair world. We don't ignore it. We don't pretend it doesn't exist. We don't judge it as these people are bad and wrong. We focus on what is it that we want to use mind to create in our own lives and in the communities where we live, and then globally. We use the power, we use the knowledge. We are not victim to society. Okay, Ryan, I've got to check in with you.
Well, it looks like, Connie, do you want to say one other last thing here real quick? Notice that you're... Go ahead.
So what you said, Dr. Tracy, reminds me of Rob Wright's side of us, not from
When I see Rob Wright at the celebration service, I will tell him he needs to write you a check. There are so many programs like that and activities at CSL Dallas where you can find the reminders that you want or need. You have the microphone. Okay. Okay. But you're not planning to use it. Okay. So I'm going to be conscious of the time as well. Ryan, are there any announcements of things coming up?
Oh, there's tons of things that are coming up, and I guess the best thing to tell you all is to look at our calendar, csldallas.org/calendar, to see all of those upcoming classes and events. But one that I did want to make mention, because it is coming up right around the corner, is the CSL Dallas new member orientation. It's a great gateway into understanding more about those programs like Connie had mentioned. That one is going to be coming up, it looks like, on August 26th from 10 a.m. to 2:30 p.m., and it is an online or in-person activity. I just like to recommend that one because even if you've been coming around for a while and you're well-versed, it's good to go through, because then you actually start to see what CSL is doing out there in the world, what CSL Dallas is doing here in the Metroplex, and really where your talents and your roles can fit in. So if you'd like, I put the link inside of the chat, and for those here, you got your cell phones, Google it, right?
I'm going to add one other announcement, and that is a reminder. You know, if you have been around CSL Dallas or Science of Mind and Centers for Spiritual Living, you know that there are ministers, and you know that there are licensed practitioners and spiritual coaches who've taken a whole bunch of classes and, you know, are leading. But the largest group in all of our centers are the people who are not practitioners, are not ministers, but are our lay members who are learning and practicing and using these principles every day. The last weekend in September, there will be the first time a member gathering. If you are interested in meeting people who are members of CSL communities all over the globe, learning from 4 or 5 key speakers and workshop leaders, and hearing some fabulous New Thought music, then I really encourage you to go to the website or to scan the CSL Dallas Facebook page for a link so that you can get more information. It's less than $50 for a Friday night and an all-day Saturday. It's virtual. So if any of that piques your interest, then please check it out. And then maybe I'll have 5 or 6 people who know me when I do my workshop for the members. And you can be in the chat saying, "Great job, Tracy. We love you."
Hey now, Tracy, I'm going to be working that event as the tech assistant. So yes, yours truly, the voice of God, is going to be on the microphone on that as well. You can't get rid of me, CSL.
The voice of God as Ryan Brown. So on behalf of Faye Abdussalam and Ryan Brown and Richard Williamson and Tracy Brown, I want to thank you for participating in the Science Mind class today. We'll see you again next Sunday, 9:15 a.m. Central Time, and maybe join us in just a few minutes for this morning's celebration service. The talk title is Climb Every Mountain, and our theme this month is Manifesting Miracles. So we'll see you there, or we'll see you next week.